Last week, we got the 1.04 update for Grounded. I did a video on this on Friday, talked about it on my live stream, did another video on for Saturday. So we're not going to go through this thing in detail. If you haven't seen those videos, go check them out, or you can just read the patch notes. I'll leave a link for those in the description down below. The reason I'm making this video today is something came to my attention that is kind of concerning to me, and I wanted to bring it up. And it kind of relates to the big feedback that I got from this update specifically. And that is that a lot of players are tired of things getting nerfed. So if you're not aware, and for those that are, I'm just going to talk about this for like 10 seconds here. This patch basically did a lot of balance changes. There's lots of nerfs. There were some buffs, but of course most people focused on the things that were nerfed, because if you're spending a lot of time investing in a specific build, as an example, the poison build has been nerfed a couple times now. So people watched a video or did some testing there on their own, went to Discord or Reddit, saw how that the poison build was pretty strong, went out, killed a bunch of Black Widows, upgraded their gear, have this great poison build, and then the developers nerf it and then nerf it again. So this has happened twice. So I can completely sympathize with anybody who spent hours and hours and hours grinding resources to upgrade gear only to have it be nerfed. But the biggest concern for me is along the same lines is these patch notes, while they do look like they're pretty detailed, and when I read through them the first time, I thought they were, they're actually missing quite a bit of information. So over the weekend, someone brought it to my attention that there's a lot of things that are not in these patch notes. And what I want to do is quickly go through those and just let you guys know what they are. Now, these are only going to be the major things that were changed. I was also told there were many minor things changed. This information is coming from a reliable source that has given me information in the past. This person shared with me the actual game file so I could look through them myself in the past. So these are changes that occurred from 1.02 to 1.04. 1.03, there was some like minor bug fixes and stuff. So I don't think any of this stuff changed in then. But basically between this past Friday and the Friday before that, these are the things that changed that are not in the patch notes. And these are a bit concerning. So these are all the undocumented changes, and I just want to go through them real quickly. And they kind of relate to this over here. So the base damage of the patch notes say base damage of most poison effects reduced by about 10%. Now, I think that just applies to the Widow Dagger poison, maybe the Spider Fang Dagger poison, something like that. But what's not mentioned in the patch notes, and this is significant because it kind of completely blows out of the water that it was only a 10% nerf. Poison Nova was nerfed by 25%. So Poison Nova comes from the Broodmother Helm. It has a chance to proc. I think it's a 10% chance to proc, and it creates a little poison cloud that does damage. The damage from that poison cloud has been nerfed by 25%. That is not in the patch notes. The Broodmother Helm itself applies poison damage. Apparently, it is supposed to be on every hit. I thought it only said a chance, but apparently, it is supposed to be happening 100% of the time. So no matter which weapon you're using, whether it's a poison weapon or not, it will apply poison damage 100% of the time. The damage from that was nerfed by 47%. Again, this is not in the patch notes. The Broodmother Trinket, which you can get as a random drop from defeating the Broodmother, if you equip that, what that does is when you use Mom's Genes or the Mant mutation, if those spawn in, they have a chance of dealing poison damage to enemies. The damage from that poison from the spawned in enemies was nerfed by 25%. The meta setup for the popular setup for the poison build, which was the Broodmother Helm plus the Widow Chest and Widow Legs, using a Broodmother Club and the Broodmother Trinket, the overall damage from that was nerfed by 46%. And also along the same lines, the Apex Predator mutation, which you unlock by defeating the Mantis, that if you have that equipped, what happens is if you're using the Broodmother Club or the Mantis Scythe, it will give you, the Broodmother Club will deal venom damage. It was poison. This is in the patch notes actually right here. It applies venom instead of poison. So this has always been the case that it was applying poison, now it's applying venom. If you have the Mantis Scythe equipped, it will give it a higher attack speed. But while this was changed, the amount of damage it was doing was nerfed by 30%. And because it's venom, it's not going to get the multiplicative effect of the Widow armor or the Spider armor for using that. So if you're not aware, one of the bonuses of wearing the Widow armor or the Spider armor is it gives you extra poison, so you can stack the same poison on top of itself. And so basically what this means is it's not stacking. So it's been nerfed 30% in damage. So while it does deal the damage to everything, including Black Widows, it's doing 30% less, and it doesn't stack, so it's not going to add into the multiplier up here. So those are the things that were changed with poison, and I find it kind of concerning that the patch notes made it seem like the poison damage was only reduced by about 10%. It does say the Widow Dagger was reduced by 10%, and then the poison was also reduced by 10%. But nowhere in here does it say any of these things, and these are major changes. Like, I'm not sure how this stuff doesn't get into the patch notes, because honestly, the effect was much larger than what we were led to believe. In addition to that, you'll notice up here, like, it did say the Tick Mako Beetle had damage reduced by 15%. Doesn't say that the Tiger Mosquito Rapier was nerfed by 14%. That also occurred. The Rotten Berry charm, which is a charm you can get from the Berry Lab, when you use that with a rotten weapon, it has a chance to create like a rotten cloud. I think it's similar to the cloud that comes off of the rotten food. The damage from that was nerfed by 25%. And then if we scroll all the way down to the bottom, there was a little note down here. Upgrading magic staves actually increases the damage done from them. So I was completely unaware that this was broken. Of course, most of you were as well, probably, because we don't know the in-game damage. And honestly, when you upgrade, the extra damage it's doing is not really noticeable from level to level. So apparently when you're upgrading the staves, so if you went from level 0 to 1 to 2 to 3, whatever, all the way up to level 9, it was still doing the same damage as it would be if it was level 0, even though it looked like it was doing more. They fixed that. So because they fixed that, I decided I was going to try out my spicy staff one stream last week. And when I did that, I was like, man, this thing feels like it's burning through stamina so quickly. And a lot of people said, no, it always uses a lot of stamina. Well, in fact, the stamina usage was actually super increased for not only the staves, but also for bows. So bow and staff stamina usage was increased by 67%. That means you're going to be able to shoot far less arrows and do far less attacks with the staff or the staves before you run out of stamina. So I think what they're trying to do is basically remove or kind of like nerf range damage. So they're basically nerfing poison damage heavily, and they're also nerfing range damage. I guess this is their way of trying to make the combat more difficult. Obviously, if you're new to the game, the combat's probably already difficult, but once you understand the game and understand how it works, combat can become very trivial. So I guess this is their way of trying to like make that harder. So these are the things that were not in here. A couple other things of note that are kind of unrelated but also related are things that are not mentioned in the game and I thought were worth bringing up in this video. First of all is Black Widows are resistant to generic weapons. Generic weapons are clubs. Any club, it does generic damage. And we were told all along that nothing is resistant to generic, but in fact, in the game code, it actually showed, and the person showed the actual code where it said this, Black Widows are resistant to generic weapons. They have a 50% resistance to it, which means if you're using the Club of the Mother Demon as an example, and it says it's doing 10 damage, it's actually only doing 5 or whatever the actual damage numbers are, right? It's only doing half the damage it shows. In addition to that, the orc bugs are weak to sour. How would anyone know that without having to sit there and test a sour weapon versus a non-sour weapon, the exact same weapons at the exact same level? Because when you cannot peep the orc bugs, nor does it anywhere, at least to my knowledge, did it ever mention that the orc bugs were weak to sour. Perhaps I missed it, but I don't believe so. So I guess the whole point of this is I'm a little bit disappointed that this information is being either intentionally or unintentionally left out of the patch notes. They go in great detail on all these things, but they're not mentioning the other things. And part of me thinks that it was intentionally left out because if you put this stuff in here, rather than looking at 10% nerf, you're saying it's a much more huge nerf here, right? 46% overall to the poison build, 47% specifically to the Broodmother Helm. These are massive nerfs that are not mentioned in the patch notes, and people are only going to find out for themselves by actually doing testing or playing it. And you're going to notice if you're doing about half the damage you were doing before. If it's taking you twice as long to kill things, that's going to be noticeable. But minor things like these small changes to weapons where in the UI you're not going to notice it because 14% isn't going to show up in the bar. That's like what, a sliver of 1 bar, so you're not even going to notice that. The bar looks a little bit less. This is why I've been asking from day one since I started playing this game for the actual numbers in the game. What percent chance are things? How much damage is exactly doing? Like the Tiger Mosquito Rapier. I don't want to know that it was nerfed 14%. I want to know that the damage, in fact, in this case, the damage went from 44 down to 38. That should say this in here. So as an example of what I would like to see, I'm going to show you another game that I play that some of you are probably sick of me talking about, but these are the patch notes for the latest update for Bloons TD6. Now, these are the balance changes, and this is what I would like to see for all games. These kind of patch notes have happened for other games I've played, but this is like exactly what I'm looking for. So basically what they do, and I'm not going to read all this, so I just want to give an example. They look at a tower in the game. In the case for Grounded, it will be looking at a weapon or armor type. And what they do is they explain why things have been changed. So basically what they're saying is as sharpshooters crit occurs didn't feel frequent enough, the overall attack rate has been increased also just to lead better into the tier 5. And then down here they tell you all the things that changed. This cross path, so in Bloons TD6, real quick, you have 3 options for upgrades. You can upgrade, there's a top, middle, and bottom path. You can upgrade 2 of the 3, and you can upgrade one of them 5 levels and one of them 2, and then the other one you can't upgrade. That's why you see these X's and stuff here, whatever like that, right? So this is telling you exactly the upgrades. The attack cooldown reduced from 0.75 to 0.6. The Master Pierce reduced from 10 to 8. This is the kind of level of detail that I want to see in these patch notes. And I think we deserve that because we're putting lots of time in the game. People are spending dozens of hours grinding resources just to be able to upgrade gear, only to have their gear be completely nerfed and being completely unaware of what it's been nerfed, and the fact that they're not even telling us everything that's been nerfed. So I guess what I'm doing, this video, the point of this video is I'm basically reaching out. This is a message to the developers. I love this game, but I really want more information. I'm not going to say this was intentionally done. It feels like it was intentional based off of what I'm seeing here, but all I know is for these changes to be made, a developer had to go into the code and type in the new values. They have to be keeping a log of the things they're changing. There's no way they're just going from patch to patch without keeping a record of what they changed, because if that's the case, they'd have no idea how to balance it going forward. They wouldn't know if we changed something by 10% before and it still feels overpowered, well, maybe we need to change it by 20%, stuff like that. So there's got to be a change log. And even if there's not, they can look at the previous version of the code and the current version of the code and do run a program that will just tell you the differences in it. And they can easily drop that into the patch notes and give us all the details. Even if it's not exact numbers, like for the Tiger Mosquito Rapier going from 44 to 38, if it just says the Tiger Mosquito Rapier damage was reduced by 14%, just like it does for this, I'm okay with that. But what I'm not okay with is just omitting lots of information. And what this is letting me now believe is I can't believe any of the patch notes I've read up to this point. And I can't believe any of the patch notes going forward, because if this much information was omitted, and by the way, there was a lot more, this was just the major stuff. If this stuff was omitted from these patch notes, what was omitted from 1.01, 02, 03? What was not omitted from 1.0? What was omitted from all the ones leading up to .14 in early access? There's obviously been things that were changed that were not in the patch notes. And I'm not asking for every time you change something like, oh, we fixed this one mushroom or this texture got fixed. That's whatever. I'm looking more at the things like the balance changes, changing mutations, changing anything to do with the numbers in the game. I really think we deserve to have all the information so we can make the best decisions. Whether we agree or disagree with your decisions, that's not really the point here. It's not our game to make. All we can do is give feedback. But if you're going to make changes and you think they're the best changes, that's fine. I'm okay with that. I will have to decide whether or not I want to keep playing the game or I want to deal with these decisions. But I still want to be able to make the best decision possible for myself by knowing all of the information. So that's where I'm going to leave this. Let me know what you think about these changes. Let me know if you are still going to be using poison. I have heard that the poison build is still strong, but obviously it's been heavily nerfed, but it is still strong. I have a suspicion of what's going to be nerfed next, because there's a couple things that I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to test these things out because they're probably strong now. Don't be surprised if they get nerfed. So I'm probably going to do a video on one of them this week. So anyway, thank you for watching. And if you found this video helpful, make sure to hit the like button. And here's another video you might find informative as well.